Hello everyone, I am Heather and I have exciting news to share with you in today's video. My exciting news is that everyone in my family is now fully vaccinated. Now when I talk about everyone in my family, I'm just talking about my immediate family, my parents, me, and my 3 kids, Andrew, Megan, and Ben. I'm hoping that this video might be helpful to those of you who are still unsure about whether to get vaccinated against COVID-19. I thought I would share our experience with you. Which vaccines did we get? When did we get them? How did it go? What did we have for side effects? And what are our reasons for choosing to get vaccinated? And I'm hoping that this information will be of help to you if you're trying to make that decision for yourself or someone in your family, especially your kids. Now, right away, I have to tell you, our family, at least my immediate family, my parents, me, my kids, are very, very pro-vaccine. And I'm not just talking about the COVID vaccine, I'm talking about all vaccines. We take vaccination very seriously. We always get all of our shots. We have very personal reasons for feeling this way. My grandfather, my dad's dad, actually contracted polio when he was young, and he had a limp for the rest of his life because he had polio. All of his siblings actually died of diphtheria, and he was left basically an only child because his siblings had all died of diphtheria, which is a totally preventable disease with vaccination. And I had a cousin who died at age 11 of meningitis while he was at boarding school in Brazil. And that was a very tragic situation. His parents couldn't even get to him fast enough to see him before he died. So all of these things could be prevented with vaccines, and we take it very seriously. There are millions of people all over this planet who would do anything to be able to get life-saving vaccines and don't have access to them. So I just have to say, I don't have a lot of sympathy for people who are anti-vax. I feel very strongly about vaccination, that vaccines save lives, and they're a very important part of an overall health program in communities. And so if you disagree with me, just stop watching right now and don't leave me nasty comments in the comment section, please, because I'm just going to probably delete them. You're never going to convince me against vaccines, ever. We're talking about 6 people here. My parents, who are both in their 70s, however, my dad is almost 80. Me, who I'm currently 48 years old, and then my 3 kids. My oldest son, Andrew, is in his mid-20s, and my daughter, Megan, and Benjamin are both teenagers. However, they happened to fall in 2 different groups, age-wise. Megan was already over 16, and Ben was in the younger teen group of the 12 to 15-year-olds at the time the vaccines came out. So we were all actually in separate age groups because my dad was over 75. My mom is in her 70s, but she's younger than 75. I'm in my 40s, Andrew's in his 20s, and then I had 2 teenagers in 2 separate teen age groups as far as like approval of the vaccine for those age groups. All but Megan were actually considered high risk. My dad, because of his age and the fact that he is still working and is out in public a lot. My mom has a number of health conditions that put her at high risk, and again, because of her age. However, she was actually the person I was least concerned with because she has completely been isolated in her apartment for basically the entire pandemic. She's been able to work from home, and she really hasn't been around anyone at all and has been alone in her apartment basically the whole time. So I wasn't really worried about her risk of exposure. I have a congenital heart defect that made me extremely high risk. And both my sons, Andrew and Ben, have asthma, which put them in high risk categories as well. So the only one who was really not high risk was Megan. Okay, 5 of us got the Pfizer vaccine. And I have to say, from everything that I've read, that's probably the one that I have the most confidence in. Andrew got the Moderna vaccine, and the only reason he got that is because that's what was available to him where I was able to get him an appointment. However, the Pfizer and Moderna vaccines work exactly the same. There's just a couple little differences in the spacing of the 2 shots, and I'll tell you about the side effects that Andrew had, and we're not sure if that was because of a difference in vaccine or if that was just Andrew's personal body's response to the vaccine. But other than that, they're exactly the same. And so if you can get either the Pfizer or the Moderna, I really feel like based on the studies and everything, those two are probably the best. Not counting the people that were in studies, where they were testing the vaccines, which I'm not exactly sure how early that started. People in the United States started receiving the vaccine, and correct me if I'm wrong, I want to say it was even late December of 2020, but for sure in January of 2020. And at the beginning, things were going very slow, and it was very difficult to secure an appointment. The first people that they were doing were healthcare workers. The thing that surprised me was based on the pacing at the very beginning and what they were saying. I really was pleasantly surprised at how fast different groups got approved. It ended up going very quickly, and especially me and my kids got vaccinated much sooner than I thought we would. I thought for especially Megan and Ben, that we were looking at fall of 2021. And so I was very pleased with how much quicker they ended up approving all the groups in the United States. My friend Morgan, who lives in Germany, on the day that I was taking Ben to get his first shot, Morgan and I happened to be chatting online, and I mentioned to him, I'm really sorry, I have to go. I have to take Ben to get his first COVID vaccine. And he was just stunned. He said, I can't believe that kids Ben's age can get the vaccine, and here in Germany, we're still on 60 and up. So the pacing of the vaccine distribution in the United States has been much faster than anywhere else in the world, except for maybe Israel. The UK has also vaccinated very quickly, but I just saw today, Emma from Emma Cruises, she posted today on Instagram, the day I'm filming this, that they just opened up the window for ages 20 to 29, and this is in mid-June. So even though the UK has also vaccinated their people very quickly, they're still behind the pace of the United States. And I think that the reason for that is the United States just has massive supply of vaccines compared to the rest of the world. And I'm glad about that. Living in America, I'm thankful for that. However, I feel that that is a travesty for the rest of the world that really desperately needs these vaccines and does not have access to them. The program that they started called COVAX, you can, maybe I'll put their website down below so you can read about that, has not worked out as well as they had hoped. And there are a lot of countries that haven't given any vaccinations at all yet and are desperate to get vaccine. I was very pleased to see in the news recently that President Biden announced that the United States, the Biden administration, is purchasing from Pfizer 500 million doses of vaccine and is going to donate them to the rest of the world. So I think that's great. I think that's what we should be doing. A country in our position should be using our privilege and our advantage to help others. And so I'm very happy about that. Okay, so because the rollout ended up picking up speed and going so much more quickly than I was expecting, we ended up having quite a bit of overlap. So my dad was the first one to get vaccinated, and he got his first vaccine on February 8th and his second one 3 weeks later on March 1st. And that's the schedule for the Pfizer vaccine. You're supposed to get them 3 weeks apart. That's how it's designed. Now, I know that in the UK, they're giving them farther apart than that to conserve supply, I think is what it is. I don't really understand how that's supposed to work. And I am a little bit concerned about those people in the UK who aren't getting it on the schedule that Pfizer actually designed it to be. So I'm not sure about that. If you live in the United Kingdom and you have any thoughts about that, share them in the comments below. My dad was tricky. I really wanted to get him an appointment, and he was doing something you absolutely should not do. Like now in the United States, this wouldn't really be a problem because lots of places, we have so much supply that lots of places are just offering walk-up vaccines. But at the time, this is in February, it was still winter. The case numbers and the deaths and hospitalizations were very, very high. And my dad was literally driving around town and just walking into places and asking them if he could get a vaccine there. And nobody was doing that at the time. And that was a very dangerous thing to be doing because he was basically putting himself at risk of contracting the virus by going out in public and physically going into places. Now, this is something my dad does all the time, like with everything. He just shows up at places. It's something that kind of drives us crazy, actually. But I had to kind of scold him and say, Dad, stop doing that. That's not safe. Just stay home. I will get you an appointment. He didn't have the computer and tech savvy. For these older people, they really needed someone younger who knew how to get, work their way around the internet to help them. Because early on, like that, it was impossible to get a vaccine appointment unless you were very tech savvy and, could get around the internet really well and you were very persistent. I compared it to trying to get like a really hard to get fast pass or dining reservation at Walt Disney World. That's what it was like. And you had to be, you had to find all the different places. Where could you go? Who had the vaccine and all of this? Well, I was even having trouble. And I was really frustrated because I really wanted him to get the vaccine as soon as possible because of that he was out in public so much and because of his high risk, because of his age. Thankfully, my aunt and uncle, my mom's brother, he actually became disabled because of a severe stroke back in 2009. And so he was also high risk, and his wife my aunt was really concerned with him getting the vaccine as soon as possible as well. And she found out something for me and passed the information along to me. And that is where all of us, except my mom and Andrew, so my dad, me, and Megan and Ben, all ended up getting our vaccines, and it was great. It's a local pharmacy in our town, just down the street from our house. I mean, we could walk there. And they had secured the contract with the government to administer the vaccine to all the nursing homes. So they had access to a huge supply of vaccines. And right away, we're getting a lot more vaccines than any place else was. My dad went to his own doctor, his own clinic, and he was told that they were only getting about 30 vaccines a week. And so his chances of getting vaccinated there were slim to none at that time. So I was actually really happy when my aunt shared that with me. When she first told me, I was skeptical because it was just this little pharmacy in town. And I'm like, how do they have, it kind of made me nervous. But then my mom found a news article about it, how they had gotten the contract to distribute all the vaccines to the nursing homes and care facilities in our area. And then I was like, oh, and so they ended up being a much bigger operation than I realized. They have a lot more people there than I knew about and are involved in a lot more things in the community than I was aware of. So we ended up going to their little clinic site. They had set it up just to give the vaccines, and their website was the easiest one I found to use. There were other places that I found that had vaccines, but the websites were really complicated, or you had to sign up and it was like not working, and it was a pain. And so they had a really nice, easy to use website, and they always seemed to have availability. At the beginning, you couldn't, you might have to refresh a few times, like when I was looking for my dad. But by the time I scheduled Ben's appointment, it was like easy peasy. Well, although Ben's was a little quirky, so I'll get back to that. Again, my dad got vaccinated February 8th and March 1st were his 2 shots. Now, here's where we start to see overlap. My mom, who lives in the Twin Cities in Minnesota, she got vaccinated. Her first shot was February 19th and her second shot was March 12th. So her and my dad actually overlapped. My dad got vaccinated first, but my mom got her first shot in between my dad's 2 shots. Okay, my mom found she was having a little trouble finding things too. Minnesota was weird. They were having like these big state-sponsored mass vaccination sites, and at the beginning it was really hard to get in at Minnesota too because they were being very strict about the tiers. But she was able to find a special program through a church in Minneapolis. I think it had something to do with her church. Okay, and then only less than 2 weeks later, they had already opened it up to high-risk people. And so then I was able to get my first shot on March 25th, just 2 weeks after my mom got her second shot. And then I had my second shot on April 15th. And I went to that same pharmacy site that my dad had gone to, and I had no problem getting an appointment at all. So there, just in the span of like a month or two, things had really opened up and it was much easier to get appointments. I do want to emphasize something really important. The COVID vaccine is free. Nobody has to pay for it. If somebody is trying to charge you for the COVID vaccine, leave. It's not legitimate. You do not have to pay for the COVID vaccine anywhere in the United States. Nobody. And they might ask for your insurance card, but you do not have to give it to them. And if you don't have insurance, don't worry about it. You can still get the vaccine. It's totally free. And at this point, unless you're under the age of 12, anybody can get it. It doesn't matter your age if you're over 12. It doesn't matter if you have insurance. It doesn't matter your race, sex, gender, health conditions, any of that. Anybody can get a vaccine that's over 12 in the United States. And the only reason at the time I'm making this video that I say that under 12 can't get it is because the vaccine hasn't actually been approved for children that young yet. Okay, and then again, we have overlap. By the time I got my vaccine, another category had opened up again, and the 16 and ups could now get the vaccine. Pfizer only had already been approved for 16 and up. And I think at the time I'm filming this, Moderna is still only 18 and up. So if you have a child right now in mid-June in the 12 to 17 age range, they can only get the Pfizer. Okay, but I had gotten mine on March 25th and April 15th, and in between, again, my 2 shots, Megan was able to get her first shot on April 9th, and then she went back 3 weeks later on April 30th. So again, all of these that I've mentioned so far were 3 weeks apart because we were all getting the Pfizer. Now, overlapping with that was my son Andrew, who's older than Megan. He was another one who was having trouble finding an appointment. He lives up in the Twin Cities too, and he searched and searched and searched and couldn't find anything. And I was giving him all these suggestions saying, try this, have you tried pharmacies, have you tried this? And he couldn't find any place. And so I finally checked. The pharmacy that we were all going to has a branch pharmacy in a town closer to the Minnesota border from where we live. And I checked there, and they only had the Moderna at that time, and that's why he got the Moderna. But it was, less of a drive than coming all the way here, but he still had his Wisconsin driver's license if they had asked, that does he live in Wisconsin? But it didn't matter. They didn't ask anyway. They didn't care. I made him an appointment there, and he was able to just drive over on, I think, like his lunch break on a Monday or Tuesday and get the shot. And so he got his first shot actually before Megan on April 5th. Megan got hers here on April 9th. But his shots were 4 weeks apart. That is the difference between the Pfizer and the Moderna. The Moderna shots are 4 weeks apart. The Pfizer shots are 3 weeks apart. So even though he got his first shot before Megan did, he got his second shot after Megan did. So Megan got her first shot on April 9th. Andrew got his on April 5th. But Megan got her second shot on April 30th, and Andrew got his on May 3rd. And then, not very long after that, May 13th was the first day in our town that the 12 to 15 age group opened up for them to get it. And I was on the phone that morning. I had already talked to somebody down there at the pharmacy about getting my son his first shot. And the reason I was so pressed, not only because I wanted Ben to get vaccinated because he's high risk and everything, I was still worried at that time that I was going to be having ankle surgery. And it sounded very likely that I could potentially be having ankle surgery on Friday, June 4th was the day I thought I might be having ankle surgery. Go back and watch any of the videos in this playlist. Okay, and so I really wanted him to get in. He had to get that first shot on May 13th because then he could get the second shot on June 3rd. This is why I was so anxious about it, because I had to be with him. If you have a child in the 12 to 15 age group, you had to be with them. I don't think I actually had to be with Megan. I didn't have to sign anything for her. Maybe I did. I'm not sure. And she's 17. So I'm not sure about that. But for Ben, I had to be with him, and I had to sign a consent form, and I had to be with him for both shots. Well, if he didn't get his first shot on May 13th, then his second shot was going to be after I thought I was going to be having ankle surgery, and I wouldn't be able to drive for months, and I had no idea how I would get him there. I was very concerned about that, and they were so nice. They're like, oh yeah, absolutely, you can come right now. Now, school was still in session on May 13th, but my kids were at home. My kids have done virtual school all this time, and Ben was actually done. And so we went down on May 13th, and it was in the morning, and As far as I know, Ben was actually the first kid in that age group, as far as the pharmacy knew, to get vaccinated in our town where we live. And then he got his second one on June 3rd. So now that it is June 17th, 2 weeks after June 3rd, we are all considered fully vaccinated. Because remember, you are not considered fully vaccinated until 14 days after your last shot in the series. So if it's a 2-shot series like the Pfizer or the Moderna, it's 2 weeks after your second shot. If it's a single shot like the AstraZeneca or the Johnson & Johnson, it's 2 weeks after your 1 shot. It takes your body that much time to build up the immune response. That's why they say that. Okay, let's talk about side effects. My dad, I think after the first vaccine, he didn't have any. He didn't even complain of a sore arm. After the second vaccine, he had chills, and he commented on it like 2 nights in a row that he got chilled at night before he went to bed. But that was like his biggest complaint. He didn't really have any other side effects at all. He was completely fine. My mom, she said after the first vaccine, she had no side effects whatsoever. After the second vaccine, she had a headache and felt a little bit tired and something else. Like kind of like she had a cold or something. And she said she felt that way for like 2 days and then she was completely fine. Okay, me. I had a very sore arm after the first shot. And I remember that day, I came home from getting the vaccine. I got my vaccine at like 11 a.m. I had picked up lunch. I came home, we ate lunch, and I said, I'm going to go take a nap. And I don't know if this was related to the vaccine or not, because I don't think it would be that quick, but I was zonked and took a really big nap that day after my first vaccine. But who knows? Maybe I was just tired that day. And then otherwise, I think after the first vaccine, I was fine. But the sore arm did give me trouble sleeping for a couple nights after the first vaccine because I would lay on it and then it would really hurt. And then after the second vaccine, basically kind of the same thing. I think the first day I was okay, but then like 24 hours later, again, the sore arm just at the site of the injection, and I was really tired. And I think 1 or 2 days I had to take a nap. And I was kind of like, but that was it. So it wasn't terrible. Okay, Megan was almost exactly the same as me. She had a sore arm. Again, I think not too bad after the first one, but after the second one, she was pretty tired and had to sleep more for a day or two. Ben, after the first shot, I don't think he had any problems at all. I think he complained of a little bit of soreness in his arm after the first shot, but it went away quite quickly. He had quite a tough time after his second shot. He had the sore arm and he felt fluish, like he got chills and he thought he had a fever and he was kind of achy and he wanted to go to bed early. And that first night that he got his second shot, he actually could not sleep at all. I thought he would sleep really good and be real tired and sleep late in the morning like Megan and I had, but he was actually up like at 6 a.m. and he said, Mom, I hardly slept at all. And he said it was because he felt chilled and like was, shaking and stuff. And then the second night, he slept long and hard. And then after that, he was completely fine. Okay, Andrew with the Moderna, he had the hardest time. And like I said at the beginning, I don't know if this was just because it was Andrew's immune response or if it was a difference with the Moderna. After the first shot, he had no issues at all. Didn't have any complaints. But after the second shot, it completely knocked him out. And he missed, I want to say it was 3 days of work. It was at least 2, and it might have been 3 days of work. He had to call in sick. And he said he just felt completely wiped out. He just was totally drained and felt completely tired, and he had to stay home from work for, it was 2 or 3 days. But by Friday, he had gotten his shots on Mondays. The first one he got like on his lunch break and he had to go back to work. But the second one, he wisely asked them if he could change the time, and he went like at the end of the day so he didn't have to take off work again. And he didn't go back to work that day. And I can't remember if he went to work on the Tuesday or not. But for sure, he took off work Wednesday and Thursday because he was so tired and so wiped out and couldn't go to work. But Friday, he was fine. And Friday, he was able to go back to work, and he said he felt completely normal. So it's like it would hit you real hard, but then it was just over. And, it wasn't gradual or anything. It was just like all of a sudden you were just totally fine. So I don't want you to be scared of side effects, and don't let that be a reason to prevent you from getting the shot. Now, granted, like Megan and Ben, I scheduled well. I scheduled them at the end of the week, Thursday and Friday. And so even if they felt crummy, like especially for Megan, because she was still doing school, she had the weekend to feel icky, and then she was better by well before Monday. So, that might be something to consider, especially with the second shot. If you're concerned about side effects and not feeling very well, just schedule it at a time that's a little bit more convenient. And there's no reason now with the availability in the United States that you shouldn't be able to do that. I mean, a lot of places are just walk up. You can go when it's convenient for you. If you have any questions about our experience with the vaccine, please leave them in the comments below. I'm very happy to answer those for you. Okay, next I want to talk to you about the reason that we got the vaccine. And our reasons in our family, like I said, we're a very, very pro-vaccine family. But besides that, for this particular vaccine, we had some very specific reasons why we wanted to get the vaccine as soon as possible. And among the 6 of us, the reasons are basically the same. We had 5 basic reasons for wanting to get the COVID vaccine as soon as possible. Number 1 was we don't want to die. This is a very deadly virus, and for 5 of the 6 of us, we were very high risk, and especially for me, and I would say my mom were probably the worst ones. There was a very good chance that if we contracted this virus, we would die. And obviously that's bad. And especially for me, my kids don't have anybody but me, really. I wouldn't feel comfortable having my parents take care of them at their age and stage of life now, and they don't have anybody but me. And so for me to die would be absolutely devastating, and that just wasn't something that I was going to risk. And obviously I don't want any of my children to die, and I don't even want my parents to die. My parents have been a huge support to us during a difficult period of life, and so I wouldn't want them to die either. So we didn't want to die. That was reason number 1. Okay. Reason number 2 was to avoid hospitalization. So even if we didn't die, there was still a pretty good chance for all of us except Megan probably, that we would end up in the hospital. And even if we didn't end up on a ventilator, I don't know about you, but I don't like staying in the hospital. I don't even like going to the emergency room. It's just traumatic. Being in the hospital is not fun. Okay? It's not someplace you want to go. I mean, even when you go to have a baby, which is a happy, joyous occasion, it's still not fun. I don't want to stay there any longer than absolutely necessary. They don't really let you sleep in the hospital, for one thing. They're always coming in and checking your vitals and waking you up at all sorts of hours. And it's noisy and you can't really rest and it's scary. I didn't want to be separated from my children, for one thing, because if I had to go to the hospital, that would be terrible. And if one of my children had to go to the hospital, I was very afraid that I wouldn't be able to be with them. Now, I think they were letting like one parent be with a child in the hospital, but for a lot of the pandemic, if you're not aware, people who end up in the hospital and who die in the hospital, it's a horrible way to die because you're alone. I had a friend whose mom died of COVID. She lives in Florida, earlier in the pandemic, and they could not be with her. And she has a whole bunch of kids, and they couldn't be with her. They had to talk to her through iPads and stuff. So I just can't, that's so sad to me. And even if you're just in the hospital, that's a lonely, sad thing not to be able to have your family with you. So we didn't want to have that happen either. Okay, number 3, and I'm not talking about just the sickness, like even say if we had like a mild case and it wasn't that bad, but I'm very, very concerned, we're all very concerned, my mom especially, about the long-term health implications of contracting the SARS-CoV-2 virus. And I have a couple of friends who are COVID long haulers that got the virus and are still suffering with health problems and symptoms months later. It's miserable, and there is a lot of permanent health damage that you can have because you get the virus, even if you had what seemed like a very mild illness at first. And nobody wants to end up with chronic health issues. I mean, that's awful. I mean, my ankle will eventually heal and I will be able to walk normally again. Okay, but even this, we're talking, it's been 6 months. The doctor's saying another 6, 12, 18 months. I mean, that's a long time to be suffering in pain and not be able to walk right. Think of people who have long, permanent, lifelong health conditions that they have to deal with their whole lives. Do you want to add that to your life, something like that, if you can help it? No. Our number 4 reason for getting the vaccine was because we want to travel. If you're paying attention to the travel news at all, if you watched any of my travel news videos that I did in the past, I'll link the playlist up here. Being fully vaccinated is going to make travel way easier for you, okay? There's all this debate like right now in the cruise industry. Are they going to be vaccinated or they're not going to be vaccinated? What's going on with Florida and them not letting them ask for vaccine status? What are the health protocols that you're going to have to follow if you're not vaccinated? If you just get vaccinated, travel will be much simpler for you. And you will be able to go places and do things that unvaccinated people can't. Or it's going to be at least way easier than what they're going to have to do. So if you want to travel, which is the focus of my channel, obviously, and if you want to make travel as simple and uncomplicated for yourself, and you want to have access to as many things as possible, and you want travel to be as close as possible to what it was like before the pandemic, you want to get vaccinated, because that's going to open up a whole new world of possibilities to you by getting vaccinated that you will not have if you're not vaccinated. We love travel, especially Andrew, me, Megan, Ben. We want to be able to travel. This was a major reason for us getting vaccinated as soon as possible. Okay, and then our 5th reason for getting vaccinated, at least for our family, is a very strong sense of civic responsibility. We feel very strongly. I do not like the approach that the United States has taken through the whole pandemic. It's a very individualized culture, individualistic culture. Pull yourself up by your bootstraps. You're responsible for your own health. I don't agree with that. I much prefer the mentality of how things are all for the common good, like they are in many European countries. And, the culture of the American mentality of this bothers me. We are very much of the mind that everybody needs to work together. This is a public health crisis. It is a pandemic. It's not just here. It's on the whole planet. And what we do here affects what happens over here. And if they're not getting access to the vaccines and there's skyrocketing cases in this country, that is going to have an effect on us eventually. So it's really important to us to be responsible global citizens and to do our part to contribute to the overall health of the community and the planet as a whole. So that's something we feel very strongly about. That's why we always wear our masks. We still wear our masks. We've never made a fuss about wearing masks. If that's important to you, if you feel like you need to be doing your part and you need to be contributing to ending the pandemic, then get vaccinated. To celebrate our family being fully vaccinated, we are going on a trip. We are going on a vacation, me, Megan, and Ben. And this will be our first time flying since a full year before the pandemic. The last time we flew was when we went to Walt Disney World in March of 2019. Now, Andrew has flown more recently than that. He flew out to Boston in March of 2020 to look at law schools. He's moving out there, but he will not be flying this time. He will be driving because he obviously needs to take his car and all of his stuff. We're excited and nervous about flying. I'm excited because getting on a plane and going to the airport and all that is exciting and fun, like I talked about in this video. But I am a little bit nervous because of the issues that they've been having on airplanes with people who don't want to cooperate with wearing masks and unruly passengers and things like that. So I'm really hoping we don't have anything like that on our flights. But otherwise, we're very excited about going on vacation. This is a very similar trip to what we were going to take over Thanksgiving break back in November, the trip that I canceled at my children's urging because cases were so high at the time, and obviously we weren't vaccinated then, and we just didn't feel safe going. It's not exactly the same stuff we were going to do then. I mean, for one thing, it's a different season, and we've changed the itinerary a little bit for several reasons, but we're going to a few of the same places that we were going to go then. And then the main thing was Megan really wanted to go to the beach. We missed the ocean terribly, and we have not seen the ocean in 3 years. So we really want to go to the ocean, and we really want to see the ocean. And, you know, cruising is still very up in the air, and we weren't going to wait around for that. So we are going on a very fun vacation, and there will be all sorts of travel vlogs and travel videos coming for you. So be sure that you are subscribed to my channel so you don't miss any of our upcoming travel content. And if you enjoyed or appreciated the information I gave you in this video, please be sure to give me a thumbs up down below. Thank you so much for joining me for this video. I hope it was helpful and informative to you. And forgive me for getting on my soapbox a little, but this is something that I feel very strongly about. Have a great day, everyone, and safe travels.